Hey everyone, Ronnie Chavez here, and today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to flow. That's doing parkour and connecting your moves and making really awesome flow lines. But before we jump into that tutorial, I wanted to let you guys know that this video has been sponsored by Megastar. It's an awesome video contest app where you can submit a video and actually have a chance to win $1 million. And all talents are welcome: singing, music, parkour, acrobatics, tricking. You know, I feel like what we do is right in line with this. So I actually submitted a video myself that you guys can go check out and vote for. So I have the link to the app you can download and my video for you to check out and vote for it. And you should try and submit a video yourself for a chance to win $1 million. So be sure to check that out, and now let's jump into the flow. So the first thing I want to talk about with flow is that there's different techniques for connecting moves and flowing. The biggest thing to think about is how you're going to be landing and transitioning into the next move. That's really what flow comes down to, is the transitions between moves. Because you can do a move perfectly, but if you land in a way that doesn't connect very well to your movement going forward from that point or going into the next trick, it's not gonna flow. And so flow is all about that fluid motion of just not stopping and keeping your motion going. And so there's a couple ways to think about flow depending on what you're doing. If you're doing like flow on rails with vaults, or if you're doing flips off ledges and trying to keep your flow going. Right now we're gonna focus on doing vaults and how you can connect moves and create flow doing flow on rails and vaults and things like that. So the first thing to think about is, are you gonna be doing flow where you're just trying to wing it? You're just doing everything in the moment and trying to keep your flow going? That's going to be different than if you're planning out exactly every move you're going to do and then trying to execute it perfectly. Generally, if you're planning it all out, you can do harder moves and really practice it till you really create a really nice line and flow. But if you're just kind of winging it and just trying to go with the momentum with whatever comes to mind, that's actually a little bit harder in practice, in my opinion, but it's still just as fun and you can flow just as well. You just have to know how to get in that mindset of how to look at your environment and how to think on the spot, so that when you land, you know exactly how your momentum is going to go into another move. So to just give you an example, if I'm going to be doing some sort of vault over this handrail like a lazy vault, you don't want to just land 2 feet in general. You can land 2 feet if you're going to be going into a precision jump or something like that, but the more you can like space out the way you're landing and the way you're transitioning your moves, the smoother it will look. So instead of just landing 2 feet, I'm going to try and land kind of in a step out. So that way, say I want to do 2 lazy vaults, it's going to be one right after the other, land on 1 foot, and just keep that motion going. You also want to think about your footing, because if you land with the opposite foot, it can affect the way you go into the next move. So if I'm gonna land with my left foot instead, then it's gonna throw off my lazy vault. So depending on what you're going into next, you have to keep in mind the type of footing you're going to use. And once you start getting familiar with the different ways you can land and the way you take off going into moves, you start realizing all these branches and trees for ways you can connect to other moves. And it's really just a matter of practice, just practicing doing moves back and forth, practicing lazy vaults back and forth, lazy vault into Kong vault, lazy vault into precision vault, or any other vault into any other vault. It's really just a matter of practicing those moves and kind of figuring out the way you can connect them. But as long as you're aware of the things that create flow and that make it smooth, that's what's important and will help you in learning flow yourself. All right, so here goes an example of just no planned out line, and I'm going to just try and keep my flow going. Just keep doing moves, try and make it semi-diverse so that I am not just doing the same move over and over. So here goes. So that's just a basic example of just going with my momentum. Obviously I got a little repetitive. If I plan out a route first, then I can actually have more time to think about what I want to do and make it much more creative, but it's going to be a lot harder to do on the spot. It may take practice to kind of get a hang of it the first few times. So when I'm trying to plan a line, I'm going to look at where I want to go, how I want my flow to go, Do I want it to just go in one straight line? Do I want it to come back and forth, kind of create like this wave of motion, or is it more just like a continuous river flowing through the environment? You know, you got to think about where you want to be and how you want to get there, and then you can start planning how you're going to incorporate your flow. So I think what I want to do, I'm just going to create a simple line going from one point to the other, going diagonal across these rails, just so you can see the process of what's going through my mind as I'm planning out these tricks. So the first one, I think I want to do a lazy vault. That sounds good. So I'll do a lazy vault here. Maybe go straight into a little side vault. That's pretty quick. And then from there, it'll just be a straight run to that corner and maybe a conk-hop precision jump to the rocks. So not a lot of moves, but the goal is to connect all these moves as quickly and fast as possible when thinking about efficient movement. Alright, so there's one example. I premeditated it, but that was my first practice. So this is something I can keep practicing and get it faster and better, and maybe even improve upon it as I'm doing it, come up with better ideas. So maybe this time I'm like, I didn't like the lazy vault. So instead, I'm going to step off this rock, do a stride to that rock, then lazy vault, and then head towards the rock. So let's see what happens there. Cool, so that one felt faster, maybe a little bit smoother, but again, it's something I'll need to practice again. And I ended up not doing a lazy vault. I ended up doing a different vault because it felt like that flowed better. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you can, on the spot, kind of change what you're planning on doing if you notice something that feels faster or smoother or cooler, depending on what you're going for. So the thing to keep in mind with flow as well is that it's also relative to the person doing it. There's different styles of flow, so you have to look at like what appeals to you and what do you want to look like doing it. And you can look at examples of professional athletes out there and use them as a starting point, but then also don't be afraid to get creative and try your own ideas. Alright, so there's just some basic tips to think about when doing flow, especially on handrails, doing vaults and things like that. I'll do more flow tutorials in the future for flips and precision jumps, things like that, so be sure to stay tuned. Thanks for watching.